That will be very interesting. I don't know. I think it to some extent we do, because internally you have your own, I don't know, criteria. Maybe we do have it internally. Mine is not the same as yours. Can we do it externally? Come on, I don't know. It will depend on the context, I guess. It will depend on the
Mhm.
conversation. It will depend on lots of things. But to be honest, seeing all of these changes, I don't feel like it's a crazy idea. I don't know.
Well, let me ask it slightly differently. That
Oh God.
you and I have met in person.
Yeah.
We've had a real conversation. We've also met online, and we've had like this. We've had sort of conversations like this. And both of us separately have met a lot of other people and had a lot of other conversations with other people, real life and online as well. Whenever you have that conversation, to me, we do measure these things. We measure them organically. We measure them automatically as part of being a human being.
Mhm.
That we get feedback from each other. We can tell where the person is looking. We can tell whether they're listening. We can tell whether they're looking away. We can tell what their body language is, whether they're receptive to a particular idea, whether they're not, whether they're encouraging of a particular idea. I can see that you're nodding right now. So I'm getting feedback. I'm getting a measurement signal from you based on what I'm saying and how you're listening to what I'm saying, and then what you think about that. So all of these things, we could break them down, but all of these things are basically data.
Mhm.
And if they're basically data, then all we kind of need to do is, there are two things. Do we measure? Yes, I think we do. The other thing is, can we measure them with a machine? It's a very different question, right? But I think we need to train a machine to do it if we're going to be able to measure it. But I think we gather this kind of data just naturally when we're looking at
Mhm.
each other, when we're talking to our fellow human being. I think we do gather feedback data. What do you
Yeah, of
think?
course, of course. I was thinking in a more physical thing, but of course, I think that's how you make friends. That's how you make business. Is essential. So if we're talking about professional relationships, you don't keep talking to people that you don't feel is going to be at the point, or with the amount of knowledge or expertise you're expecting from that person. But it's exactly the same in real life, in the personal life. You will want friends in your life that make you happy or care about you, and it's exactly the same. We do have something inside us measuring all of that. Will we, measuring this with data and tools and AI? I don't know. For what? That's the question. For what?
Well, for what is always a good question. Have you seen? I'm gonna already know that the answer is no, but have you seen? Have you seen the film RoboCop?
I'm not very
No.
sure. Maybe once upon
Okay.
a time, but I don't remember.
Have you seen the film Terminator 2?
I believe so, but
Okay.
very long
Right.
time ago.
So both of these are films where effectively you have a machine with a human likeness, and that
Yeah.
machine is looking around, and you always get a little bit of a kind of visual where the person's looking around and analyzing, and there's things on the screen where you see, oh, this person's like, 6'1" and 230 kilos or whatever, right? 230 pounds, not kilos. So you get these kind of things that are happening around the machine as the machine walks through the plot or walks through the that particular scene in a film. So there potentially are use cases out there where you might want a machine to observe the natural environment and then feedback some data. And you can already see this happening to some degree in marketing, where I think it might have been in China, where they were using things like facial recognition to give personalized adverts within a supermarket. So I can see that there are kind of use cases emerging in the market. But if we take it even, I said I was going to talk about personal relationships. I don't mean like really personal relationships, but even when you go about your daily life, when I was either in Madrid or Italy, one of these places where I haven't really been before. And I was having an interaction with somebody at a coffee shop. So I was ordering a coffee, and that person was talking to me, and in their language, I wasn't great at their language. They weren't great at my language, but we were making it happen, right? We were having that transactional kind of conversation. But there was also a little bit of interest in the other person to say, well, maybe I've ordered a coffee. Do I also want a cake or something else? Right. So we have the potential for a conversation to go in multiple different ways. And depending on how we measure it, we want to know more or less how interested that person is using things like body language and all of this. So I can see, even on a personal level, there are probably use cases which, if we had some kind of ability to measure things a little bit more accurately, things might be a little bit more easy.
Yeah, but I think this opened another conversation, and it's like we're losing that human bit, that human touch. Because why do you need to know if a person likes something rather than another thing? And this reminds me to a Black Mirror episode. Like there was actually one, and everybody was given marks to people depending on how they think or if they
Hmm.
really liked a profile more than. And
Yeah.
it was about I don't know, I think it was a woman, and she was I don't know if you saw this episode, but she was losing points because of a very silly thing, and her life completely was transformed because she was losing her status. And it's
Mm.
a scary thinking that this could happen, but it feels like that's why I think it's very important to keep this evolution under control in terms of data and in terms of compliance.
Mm.
Because if not, you don't really know what the limit is going to be. And it has to have some limits to keep some ethical, context here. Otherwise, I think
Yeah.
it could be because not everybody is okay using certain skills, and I think it has a massive risk to lose the human bit and all we come to that film of Her. I don't know if you watched this one too.
I've seen that,
Um,
yeah.
it has very positive incomes, and I think here that we are building the whole thing, we need to be careful on how we build it and what we want to take from these technologies in order to make our life better, no worse,
Yeah.
basically, I believe.
And that's a very good segue into the last kinds of questions. So we talked about systems, we talked about game-based learning, we talked about challenges and problems and opportunities and all of these things. Risks we talked about as well. But all of this leads us to an idea, and the idea is the dream of the future, the utopia that we want to see versus the dystopia that we don't want to see. So we have in that utopia, dystopia, we have this potential future, emerging trends that lead us somewhere. And you've touched very nicely on, the use of the human. Where is the line when we think about what the machine can do and what the human can do? What should we be doing in terms of implementation? So things like ethics also play a part in this, and you've outlined that very nicely. But when we bring this back to corporate learning and learning experiences and self-actualization of the workforce versus compliance and all of these tricky things that we need to think about with learning departments. I've just thought of something else, but this is a tricky discussion with learning departments because on the one hand you've got this idea of compliance. You will obey. You will do this thing. You'll sign on the line and sign your life away. And on the other hand, the next day the learning department goes out into the population and says, you know what, everybody, we want you to be the best that you can be. We want you to fly high and touch the sky, and here's a cuddle, and let's make sure that everybody feels great. And going back and forth between those two things is a little good cop, bad cop, right? It seems a little bit tricky, and the line that learning departments have to tread is therefore difficult. But anyway, that's an aside, right? But the trend that we see in AI-powered learning experiences and how that affects or impacts what the future of learning departments might be, where do you think we're going to be going?
It's very difficult to say because, as we were saying, lots of changes. We're in the middle of everything, right? In one hand, as mentioned before, learning and development teams are completely going to change. They will be more controlling in a strategic way. They will be very data literate as well in order to make sure that they are aligned to the business objectives. So they won't be as creators as they are now, more or less. They will be more focused on the strategic side of things because all of this is being automated already. I think things are moving to a more personalization for absolutely everything. And I'm talking as learning and development professionals having a platform that helps in terms of different profiles, different skills, everything very tailored and tidy, but also on the part of the learner. I think they are aiming to have a more immersive experience with the tools and the learning pathways, being able to talk to an LMS or having very different experiences in order to make sure that they have very hands-on situation with everything they are learning. So everything I think is going to go to a very experiential situation. Now that we know that we are able to talk to avatars as we do in our role play that we just developed, you're talking to an avatar and the avatar is coming back to you dependent on how good or bad your answer is or how much you know about a topic or so on, and it's adapting to you as a learner individually. So I think this is what we are going to in absolutely everything, not just in this case that we're talking about simulations, but in the whole experience as a learner within a company. Everything needs to be touched, everything needs to be living and as close as real life as possible. From the learning and development teams part, as I said, very data driven, completely gonna change the scope they have right now. And I think again, governance, compliance is gonna be very, very, very important because they will need to mark what the limits are, what the line is, and they will need to design things that are not designed yet because nobody knows how to implement it. So they will definitely need to take those risks and play and see how that goes. And if they are not right, well, they will need to go backwards and try it again. But I think they will definitely need to take some risk, and they will, in order to see how to implement these tools that nobody really knows how to implement in this, this context. That's
Wow.
how I see it, but it's difficult to see because we're in the middle.
Absolutely. And interestingly, that where we say we don't know where the line is, but there is a line. And it's up to you guys in your companies, if you're watching this, it's up to you guys in your companies to figure out where that line is for you. And not only that, but everything that Sonia has just said about like the future of learning departments might need you to have data skills, might need you to be a strategic thinker, might need you to outline what that learning experience looks like. Do you have those skills today? And if you don't have those skills, how will you get them? So all of these are questions that you need to go and think about. If you're watching this, hopefully some of those questions have been sparked in your mind and you'll go away and think about those. If you are interested in how game-based learning and how AI-driven learning is able to happen in your organizations with the platform that Game Strategies has, then contact Sonia. The details will be in the comments below. If you're interested in strategic implementation of AI or weird and wonderful things that the tech can do, let me know, contact me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're following this on Spotify, follow the channel. Other than that, it only remains for me to thank Sonia. Thank you, Sonia, for being part of this hour with me today.
Oh, thank you, Ash. It's been a great time. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, everybody. See you next time.